Let's get to it. Number 10. The Unicorn of Lascaux Cave, France, around 17,000 BCE. Imagine it's 1940. You're a teenager in occupied France, chasing your dog into a hole in the ground. You slide down a shaft and stumble into a dark, damp gallery. You light a match and the shadows dance. Suddenly, the walls come alive. You have discovered the Sistine Chapel of prehistory, the Lascaux Cave. The walls are thundering with realistic bulls, horses, and stags. But as you sweep your light across the Hall of the Bulls, the beam catches something that makes you pause. It stands apart from the herd, a creature that looks like a biological glitch in a gallery of perfection. This figure is bafflingly referred to as the licorne, the unicorn. But don't picture a majestic white horse. This thing looks like a bloated potato on sticks. It has a massive, square, woolly body, thick tree trunk legs, and a bizarrely small head. But the defining features are the two incredibly long, straight horns jutting out from its forehead. It looks nothing like the anatomically precise aurochs and horses surrounding it. The ancient artists of Lascaux were obsessed with realism. They captured the gait of a horse and the muscle tone of a bison with photographic accuracy. So why drop a clumsy mythical beast right in the middle of a nature documentary? Some paleozoologists have tried to argue it's a Tibetan antelope or a localized mutation of a deer, but the geography and anatomy just don't line up. It is an anomaly painted in the style of a fact. The most boring explanation is usually the right one. It's likely a human dressed in a ritual costume, or perhaps a bad drawing of a generic animal done by an apprentice. But here's the problem with that theory. These people didn't waste pigment on bad drawings. If they painted it, they respected it. So did they hallucinate a monster? Or was there something walking the French countryside 17,000 years ago that the fossil record completely missed? Number 9. The dinosaur petroglyph at Kachina Bridge, Utah, USA, around 1000 to 1200 CE. Deep in the Red Rock Canyons of Utah, under the massive span of the Kachina Bridge Natural Arch, there is a gallery of rock art left by the ancestral Puebloans. It's a dry, sun-baked landscape that screams Wild West. You expect to see carvings of bighorn sheep, snakes, and maybe a humanoid figure or two. And you do. But then you spot a carving near the ground that stops you cold. It's a profile that every 6-year-old child recognizes instantly. It's a shape that belongs in a Spielberg movie, not on a cliff face carved 1,000 years ago. The petroglyph shows a creature with a massive rounded body, thick pillar-like legs, a long, heavy tail dragging behind it, and a long serpentine neck topped with a small head. It is, for all intents and purposes, a sauropod dinosaur, specifically an Apatosaurus or Brontosaurus. The problem, of course, is that these thunder lizards clocked out of existence about 65 million years before the first human set foot in Utah. This carving has become the poster child for young Earth creationists and cryptozoologists who argue that the only way an ancient Native American could carve a dinosaur is if they actually saw one. The anatomy is shockingly accurate, right down to the curvature of the neck and the weight distribution of the legs. Science, as usual, ruins the party. High-definition analysis suggests the legs are actually natural mud stains and mineral deposits, and the neck is a separate snake carving that just so happens to align with the body. It's a case of pareidolia. But even knowing that, when you squint at the rock, the dinosaur pops out with terrifying clarity. Is it just a trick of the light? Or is it a racial memory of the monsters that used to own this planet?
8. The Sorcerer of Trois-Frères, France, 13,000 BCE. To see this one, you have to work for it. You have to crawl through hundreds of meters of narrow, suffocating tunnels in the Trois-Frères cave system. Finally, you reach the sanctuary, a chamber that feels heavy with silence. High up on the wall, dominating the hundreds of engraved animals below, is a figure that is neither human nor beast. It watches over the darkness with an intensity that feels predatory. This isn't just art, it's an entity. The Abbé Henri Breuil, the priest who sketched it in the 1920s, didn't call it a drawing. He called it the god of the old Stone Age. The sorcerer is the ultimate nightmare fuel. It is a therianthrope, a hybrid. It has the antlers of a stag, the round staring eyes of an owl or a wolf, the long beard of the human man, the paws of a lion and the tail of a wild horse. It is standing upright, almost dancing, in a posture of authority. It is the master of animals. The detail is excruciating. The artist wanted you to see every mismatched part. This figure suggests a complex shamanistic religion where the boundaries between man and animal were fluid. It implies that these people believed they could shapeshift or that they were ruled by entities that were a biological collage of the apex predators they feared. Anthropologists say this is almost certainly a shaman wearing a ritual costume made of animal parts to ensure a good hunt. It's primitive theater. But look into those wide, hollow eyes again. Were they dressing up to pretend to be a god? Or were they dressing up to mimic something they actually met in the flickering light of the deep caves? 7. The giant sloth of Cueva del Milodon, Chile, 10,000 BCE. We go to the uttermost end of the earth, Patagonia. The winds here can peel the paint off a car. In 1895, a German explorer poked around a massive cave and found a piece of skin. It was covered in coarse reddish hair and embedded with tiny dermal bones. It looked fresh. He thought he had found a cow or a bear. He hadn't. He had found the skin of a monster that was supposed to have been dead for millennia. The cave paintings nearby told the rest of the story, a story of a battle between tiny men and a giant beast. The creature is the Mylodon, a giant ground sloth. These things were the size of elephants, weighing over a ton, and could stand on their hind legs to reach 10 feet high. The paintings in the cave, some of which are contested as natural formations but others clearly anthropogenic, seem to depict these massive sloths. The physical evidence in the cave was so well preserved by the cold, dry air that early explorers actually thought the animals were still alive, hiding in the nearby forest. The art and the bones suggest that humans in Patagonia didn't just hunt these megafauna, they might have corralled them. It shatters the timeline, suggesting a coexistence that lasted far longer than we thought. Carbon dating eventually spoiled the fun, dating the skin to about 10,000 years ago, right around the time of the extinction event. The freshness was just amazing preservation, but local legends of the Yamish, a hairy giant of the woods, persist to this day. Did we kill the last of them? Or did we just drive them deeper into the shadows where we can't find them?
6. The water rhinos of the Green Sahara. The Sahara Desert, 9,000 BCE. You are standing in the middle of the Sahara Desert. It is 120 degrees. There is nothing but sand, rock, and death for 1,000 miles in every direction. It is the definition of dry. You look down at a sandstone outcrop and see an engraving that shouldn't be there. It's not a camel, it's not a scorpion, it's a 15-foot-long crocodile. Next to it is a hippopotamus, and next to that is a rhinoceros. You are hallucinating, or the desert is lying to you. This is the Tasili Najea Plateau, an outdoor museum of prehistoric art. The Bubulus period engravings depict a world that is scientifically impossible today. We see herds of elephants, giraffes, and most shockingly, water-dependent animals like hippos and rhinos swimming. The detail implies first-hand observation. The artists didn't hear about these animals from travelers. They watched them wallow in mud that is now dust. This proves the Green Sahara theory. that this hellscape was a lush savanna teeming with life, fed by massive river systems that have since evaporated into thin air. We know this is due to the orbital wobble of the Earth, which cycles the Sahara between wet and dry every 20,000 years. It's a geological fact. But standing there, looking at a carving of a swimming hippo while your skin crackles from dryness, is a terrifying memento mori. It reminds us that the climate is a pendulum. If the Sahara used to be green, what will our green cities look like when the pendulum swings back? 5. The Mushroom Men of Tasili, Niger, Algeria, 6000 BCE. Staying in the Sahara, we move from the animals to the people, or at least we think they are people. Among the realistic depictions of hunters and cattle, there is a specific group of paintings that feels like a fever dream. These figures don't have human heads. They don't even have animal heads. They are the round heads, and they seem to be floating in a world that operates by different rules of gravity and biology. These figures are often depicted with bulbous, featureless heads that look remarkably like psilocybe mushrooms. In some scenes, the figures are running with mushrooms growing out of their bodies. In others, a bee-headed shaman figure is covered in fungal growths, holding fistfuls of mushrooms. Ethnomycologists point to this as the earliest concrete evidence of human use of psychedelics. It suggests that the stoned ape theory, the idea that hallucinogens catalyzed human consciousness or religion, might have some artistic receipts. These aren't just hunters, they are psychonauts, documenting a trip. The academic consensus is that these are ritual masks or symbolic representations of a trance state. They painted what they felt, not what they saw. But looking at the uniform nature of these round heads, you have to ask, did the mushrooms just distort their vision, or did they open a door to a dimension where these entities actually exist?
4. The Wandjina, sky beings from Australia, some 3800 BCE to the present. In the Kimberley region of Western Australia, the indigenous people have the oldest continuous culture on the planet. They have stories that go back to the Ice Age, and they have rock art that makes UFO enthusiasts lose their minds. Painted on the rock overhangs are figures that look unnervingly familiar to anyone who has watched The X-Files. They are the Wandjina. They are the creators, the rain bringers, and they are watching you. The Wandjina are striking. They have massive, bulbous white heads, huge black wraparound eyes, and tiny bodies. Crucially, they have no mouths. The Aboriginal elders say that if the Wandjina had mouths, the rain would never stop and the world would drown. They are surrounded by halos, or helmets of lines. Ancient astronaut theorists look at the Wandjina and see greys wearing space helmets. The lore says they came from the Milky Way and returned to the sky. The resemblance to modern alien abduction reports is frankly startling. Anthropologists and elders explain that the eyes represent thunderstorms, the halo is lightning or clouds, and the face is a stylized owl or skull. They are nature spirits, not spacemen. But why is it that when humans across time and space try to depict beings from the sky, they always draw the same face? Big head, black eyes, no mouth. Is it a universal archetype or a universal memory? 3. The Thunderbird petroglyphs, Illinois, Utah, various states. High on a limestone bluff overlooking the Mississippi River, or carved into the black rock of Dragon Canyon, there is a monster of the air. Native American legends across the entire continent speak of the Thunderbird, a bird so large its wings beat like thunder and its eyes flashed lightning. It was a creature that could carry off a grown man. Skeptics call it a myth, but the carvings left behind look suspiciously like something that should have died with the dinosaurs. The famous Piazza Bird mural, restored or recreated, and the Black Dragon Canyon petroglyph depict winged creatures that defy ornithology. The Black Dragon glyph in particular shows a figure with a massive wingspan, a crested head, a long beak, and what looks like a tail vein. It doesn't look like an eagle or a condor. It looks like a pterosaur, specifically a Quetzalcoatlus. Cryptozoologists argue that perhaps a small population of these flying reptiles survived into the Holocene, isolated in the vast American wilderness, terrorizing the early inhabitants. Debunkers argue the black dragon is actually 5 different drawings: a dog, a snake, a human, that had been circled with chalk to look like a pterosaur. It's a hoax of perspective. But the Thunderbird legend is ubiquitous. From Alaska to Arizona, the story is the same. If it wasn't a dinosaur, what kind of bird was big enough to make an entire continent afraid of the sky?
The helmeted figures of Val Camonica, Italy, 10,000 BCE. Val Camonica is a valley in the Italian Alps that holds one of the world's greatest collections of prehistoric art, over 140,000 figures. Most are standard: deer, warriors, huts. But among the mundane scenes of Iron Age life, there is a specific set of petroglyphs known as the Communion Roses, or the astronauts. When Eric von Daniken wrote Chariots of the Gods, these were his Exhibit A. The figures are bizarre. They have small human bodies, but their heads are encased in massive, round, bubble-like helmets. Radiating out from these helmets are lines that look like light rays or antennae. In their hands, they hold strange triangular tools or weapons that don't look like spears or bows. To a modern eye, they look exactly like a 1960s depiction of a cosmonaut in a pressure suit. The helmets seem too large to be natural heads, and the rays implies some kind of energy or technology. It is the quintessential ancient alien graffiti. Archaeologists insist these are ritual dances. The helmets are likely woven basket masks or headdresses made of feathers representing the sun. The tools are likely boomerangs or ceremonial objects. It's a dance, not a landing. But looking at that silhouette, the specificity is unnerving. Why does a ritual mask from 10,000 BCE look exactly like a life support system from 2024 AD? The Megaloceros of Chauvet Cave in France, 30,000 BCE. We return to France, to the Chauvet Cave, sealed by a rock slide for millennia and only rediscovered in 1994. The art here is twice as old as Lascaux, yet somehow the quality is better. It's 3D, dynamic, and shaded. The artists here were masters, and on a limestone wall, drawn with charcoal, is a portrait of a king. A creature so majestic and tragic that seeing it feels like seeing a ghost. It is the Megaloceros, the Irish elk. It was a deer the size of a moose, with antlers that spanned 12 feet across, the widest of any animal known to exist. The painting is stunningly accurate, capturing the distinct hump on the shoulders and the dark markings on the neck. This isn't a mystery beast in the sense that we don't know what it is. We have the bones. The mystery is the visceral reality of the painting. It proves that humans looked this biological impossibility in the eye. It gives us flesh and fur to put on the skeleton. It confirms that our ancestors shared the forest with monsters. We know they existed, and we know they went extinct as the ice retreated and their massive antlers became a liability in dense forests. Science explains the animal, but the art explains the human. We look at this painting and see a masterpiece. The artist looked at the subject and saw a god they had to kill to survive. We are staring into the eyes of a ghost, painted by a ghost. And for a second, the 30,000 years between us vanishes. Let's be honest.
99% of people will look at these images and just see primitive doodles or mythology. They'll dismiss the anomalies without a second thought. But the fact that you watched this far means your brain is wired differently. You don't just consume history, you question the timeline. You see the gaps in the fossil record, and you're here because you know the official story is missing a few critical chapters. This channel is the place where we recover them. This is our archive. So stop being a tourist, make it permanent, hit subscribe, and officially join the think tank. Then, prove your worth in the comments. Pick the one painting from this list that you believe is the absolute smoking gun. Which creature proves the history books are wrong? Defend your choice. Let's see who can build the most compelling case. The floor is yours.